Hello, for the second Sunday of Lent, using the first reading, Genesis 15, verses 5 to 12, and verses 17 and 18 included, and Luke 9, 28 to 36. And the title of this little homily is Look Up at the Stars. The reason is because of that first reading, when God calls Abraham to be the father of the Jewish people. And he is childless with Sarah. And he says, look up at the stars. And Abraham looks up and he sees an unbelievable amount and number of stars. And he says, your progeny will be as multiple. And Abraham believed. Well, when looking up to the stars, I can remember two times when I tried to do that or did that. And early in my priesthood, a group of priests from northern Kentucky, they bought a old house up in Ontario, Canada, on Lake Kagawong, and they fixed it up, and they built a chapel, and there was another little teeny house they called the little house, the wee house. Well, one of the priests died, and they asked me if I would like a share in the complex. And there were 16 priests, one died, and I paid a few thousands of dollars. And I joined, and I went up there, and we all got rights to use the place, and I took my family, my brother Paul's family, Dick's family, and Larry, the family. And in this little wee house, it was only big enough for two bunk beds, one on one side, the other on the other, and a little 3-foot aisle in between. And my nephew Matt and I slept there. And the rest of the family people, they sat in the main house. And nobody slept at that time into the chapel. But one night, in the middle of the night, when I sort of had to go to the bathroom, I walked out of the wee house, and it was a cloudy night, and it was so dark. This place is so far away, there's no city lights. I walked out about 10, 15 feet to take a right to go over to the main house, and it was so dark, I didn't even know how far right I took. And I was totally frightened in the absolute dark that I might not even be able to get back to the wee house. But I managed. One night. Well, another night, it was crystal clear with no city lights and no lights from our house or the houses, or the chapel. And I looked up and I saw the stars. I saw stars that I didn't know in the place there were more stars. And it was so bright, it was almost like a miracle or a vision. I'll never forget how bright those stars were or how many there were. Well, God promised Abram that his progeny would be as multiple as the stars in the sky. And he did promise, and he has fulfilled. Well, Abraham was, the longer he lived, his wife was in her 90s, and they still didn't have a child. So she said, you go take the servant and have a child by her so we have a child. And God promised it was going to be Abraham's Sarah, and Abraham was going to start this off. And we know they did. They had children. Hagar, the servant, slave, or whatever, she had children. And that was the beginning of, especially from Abraham's side, the father of the Jewish people. Well, that has been so numerous. And not only was it Abraham the father of the Jewish people, he was the father of our religion as well. The Gentile world, not only the Jewish world, but the Gentile world. And so this God has come into this world under the little boy Jesus, who was human and divine, and he preached to everyone. And he suffered, died, and rose again for everyone, Jew and Gentile, all portrayed in that first reading. So God did call Abraham, and Abraham went and he did his thing. They were not only began, he wandered to a new land. They were imprisoned under the king of Egypt. And this whole history has taken place. And God calls us. And Abraham listened in faith to God himself. I think that is interesting. Which brings us to another thing of faith, and that's the gospel. And Jesus takes Peter, James, and John up to the mountain, and Jesus is in prayer, and all of a sudden, Peter, James, and John, looking at Jesus, they see not only Jesus, but they see Moses and Elijah. And Jesus is in prayer, probably listening to his heavenly Father and speaking to his heavenly Father. And he was glorified. I mean, the apostles, they were able to see part of the totality of Jesus, that he wasn't just this young man from Nazareth, but he was the young man and something unbelievably more. His body became light as light and bright as bright, and as beautiful as beautiful, and they never, ever forgot it. And in fact, at the end of that insight, that miracle, that vision, or whatever it was, they wanted to build monuments for Moses and Elijah and Jesus and so forth. But no, Jesus said, we're going to Jerusalem, where I have things to do in Jerusalem. Suffer, die, and rise again. But at the very end of that vision that they had, out of the cloud came a voice who spoke, the voice of God the Father. This is my beloved Son. Listen to him. That's interesting. He said that also at the baptism of Jesus in the Jordan River. And now he's saying it much into his mission. This is my beloved Son. Listen to him. And we call it the Transfiguration. He prayed. They prayed. We have this whole history going back to Abraham, 1850 BC. And then not only Abraham and the Jews, but the Jews in the Gentile world. And this Jesus came to suffer and die for everyone, all the Jews, all the Gentile world, and even all of the people, you and me, here today. We're part of the Gentile world. This is my beloved Son. Listen to him. Well, we're going in second week of Lent. What are we supposed to do? Listen to Jesus. Lift up our mind and heart to Jesus. In fact, recently, on one of the weekday homilies that the Holy Father, Pope Francis, gives in Rome, he was talking about prayer and contemplation. And he says, I'll tell you, it's not just these great saints, prayer and contemplation. It's you and me, or you and I, who aren't great saints. We are called to raise our mind and heart to God too. We are called to contemplation. And he said it's simple. It's as simple as Jesus looks at me and I look at Jesus. We're going in the second week of Lent. Are you taking out time to listen to Jesus and talk to him? Or Jesus looks at you and you talk to Jesus? I hope you are. I hope you are. Have a good day.